Hey guys, and welcome back to One Two Juice. It's your boys Ming and Elliot. We're here with it's a fat podcast. That's what it is. Unfortunately, another one for you to watch. But hey, we want to keep it short and simple. But more importantly, getting you up to date, not with so much the news that's already been going around, but some extra insights to it. So stick around if you are keen to find out more. Welcome back. Hello, sir.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you across the interwebs.
Yes, I'm back in Singapore now, so having this conversation from across the border.
It's all right. Elliot comes to KL pretty often, so we'll have him in the studio again. But for now, this is more than perfect for us to talk about some of the fancy stuff that's happened.
Yeah, dude, it's been a crazy time. So I think just kind of like set the stage for a lot of you guys out there. We'll try to do more regular like podcasting for you guys, so there's more ways to share. And if I had to travel up every single time to record something, I think it would be
That's
super
a lot of money.
inconsistent. Yeah, so we're kind of trying to do this thing out for you guys. Let us know at the end of the cast, like what else you guys like to see, and we'll try to see how we can make this a little bit more lively for you all.
For sure.
Yeah.
So Elliot and I wanted to talk about the recent band and errata list that came out on the 4th of May.
Yes, just yesterday. We're recording this a day after
Friday,
the news.
Yeah,
just trying to like wrap our heads around it. Nothing much to wrap our heads around, honestly, because
literally nothing, right?
Literally nothing, dude.
So leading up to the list announcement, we had some I don't know what maybe prophecies.
Yeah, I had some conjectures about it. I had some like imaginings about what could be on that list.
Yeah.
I think high on my list was like 3 of a kind. I think 3 Oak is one of those like super strong cards. That we could try to take away. I also thought of like Bullseye Bracer because I felt like that was just giving way too much value at that point in time.
I agree.
Yeah. What else was on your high priority list, Ming?
I honestly would say Bullseye Bracers would be the top one. And I think the reason why, like we were talking about it a lot, is because the sheer number of Lexis that turned up for Pro Tour Baltimore, and not even just the numbers, right? But into top 8 was redonkulous.
Yeah, half of the pool in top 8.
Dude, that was like, I remember like that was Pro Tour 1 with Chain and Prism, dude. That was the sort of numbers we were looking at.
Yep.
There were 4 Lexis in top 8. There was Dromai, Azalea, and Oldhim as well. But it was interesting to see. So we kind of expected we kind of expected Lexi to take some sort of hit, right?
I definitely expected at least something to be taken away from her. I feel like today one of the big discussions we've had is that one of the old inconsistencies with Ranger is that not enough engines to help rev up, not enough recovery tools. 3 Oak was always a good recovery tool because it was tunic and then draw 3 helps you block out the hand and continue some level of aggression. But with the addition of things like codexes, right, with people are running both the Codex of Frailty and the Codex of Inertia, it became a very strong 1-card play you could do in order to get back some of that tempo, get back into the game.
I like especially the fact that there is a bit more aggression in Lexi this time around. You're looking at lists that came out post Pro Tour, and you realize that a lot of them are sort of like either like in the way that Elliot calls it, ice light or fuseless almost. So there is a blocking capacity for Lexi, and that's why I feel like the value has been added on the codexes. And so a lot of people prior to the list and announcement coming out as well have probably like they were saying that the codexes should be banned. I mean, thinking about some of the plays that comes out, you drop a codex, put Death Touch in Arsenal, and then with Tunic play for 1. That's disgustingly efficient, right?
It is very, very good. In fact, like it's so crazy because of the codexes, you get all that recursion that previously we wouldn't have, and with additions from like Drill Shot in Dynasty, those were really, really strong 0 for 4 cards that kind of forced the block. If not, they were like 0 for 5 most of the time.
Like the worst sort of like situation when you think you have the upper hand already is when Alexi drops that and the Endless Arrow comes out for 0. And it's up to you. I mean, it's an M. It's a M card. You should respect that,
Yeah, for sure. But surprisingly enough, nothing was hit on this banned and restricted list. And that kind of means that looking forward for the Road to National season, we'll be playing with a very similar meta to what we have today,
Mm.
and also a lot of I guess innovation from players' parts.
How do
Where
you how do
yeah,
you feel about that? Like, some people are calling this the most diverse season of Flesh and Blood ever, right?
well, okay, I have a few I have a few ways of responding to this.
Yeah.
Number one, the way I like to think about most card games in general is that there must be a very solid triangle of a meta in order
Yeah.
for it to be what I consider healthy, right?
Mm.
You need an aggro side, you need a control side, and sometimes you need a label of a combo piece or some sort of like setup. In Flesh and Blood, like combo isn't like one of the biggest things. I think Bolton maybe resembles that.
Yeah.
But you need something to keep like these long stally games in check.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we're missing that part of the triangle today. In fact, what you're looking at is a very aggressive meta that is being polarized by a very fatiguey sort of
Wow.
archetype. Yeah.
That's
So
true,
it's
yeah.
actually just like, you're just looking at two things kind of like
It's
clash
just, yeah,
against each other. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
So
that's very true, especially with
mm.
like the majority of the decks that made it to just the top 8, right? Like I love that Oldham one as well. The
Oh yeah,
old man
Michael Fink
still,
played like a beast. Michael Fink
dude,
played like a beast.
alive and well, man, alive and well. And I think maybe something to also consider is that there is people think that, oh yeah, Flesh and Blood does sometimes reward the aggressive players. If you're
Mhm.
playing an aggressive deck, you know what we mean, because you have gas, you're pumping on. But then there's also a group of players, and I know this has brought up a lot of discussion this past season as well, about the whole idea of what a fatigue deck does, and whether
Oh
that
yeah.
has a place in the entire play style. But I agree with you. I think there needs to be some sort of check and balance between decks, because if that's not the case, every deck is just gonna look like the same deck, and you don't want
Yeah.
to be playing
Yeah.
a game like that, right?
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about like what the meta could look like a bit later as well.
Yes, sir.
Because there are some brewings underground talking about what could sort of like shake it up a little bit. But
Yeah.
I think what just kind of preface my main thoughts on the solution to this really
Yeah.
is we need to start looking at how to tune the game downwards so that we don't have hyper explosive turns. Right. What
Yes.
makes the game so crazy right now is that Lexi's when even the old 5 meta, we were pushing like 30 plus damage turns. And
Yes.
that's not healthy for the game because it encourages the stally decks to try to hit these, block out like 20 odd damage turns. And
That's
that's
right,
also
yeah.
crazy. We looked at, do you want to live in a world where Michael Feng has to play 2 hours against like Yuha?
That's not the kind of games we want to be playing, man. Like, locally at Armories, we get angry when that happens. So that's
Absolutely.
not the world I want to live in, right?
Yeah.
It's a very good point. But before we jump into that one, do you have any standout moments or highlights from Pro Tour that you were like, oh man, that was what a standout?
I think Mara's story is actually my favorite. Her story is insane. So from what I understand, she does all these sick alters for like draw my cards. So she knows draw
Yeah.
my cards like the back
Yeah.
of her hand.
Yeah.
And people were coming to her and saying like, oh, man, draw my is not a great deck. There's no conversion. And this was right after I think Battle Hardened Richmond, where there was a strong representation for draw my.
Yeah.
But the conversion top 8 was abysmal.
What? Yeah.
And so, supposedly, and this is what I heard through the grapevine, that Mara was like, you know what? I'm gonna put it in my own hands. I'm gonna show you how like Dromai is meant to be played.
Yeah.
And she made it all the way to the
That
finals.
is- congratulations, Mara. Like, honestly, what is showing? Amazing.
Yeah, just an insane player.
Yeah.
I think her list. What I liked was that we saw 2 different kinds of lists at Proto Baltimore for
Yes.
Dromai.
Yes.
Who hasn't had her day in the spotlight for a while. I think as a deck, if I had to be objective about it, I'm a big illusionist stan, but one of the biggest issues with Droma is that she doesn't have that many convincing sort of matchups across the spread. You need to pick it up as a very specific deck to counter a very specific meta.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
not an evergreen sort of,
I agree.
you can bring it out all the time. But we saw Yuha's list and Mara's list, and they played 2 pretty distinct styles. One like
Very
big
different.
dragons, and
Yeah.
one more of like closer to a red liner, sort of aggro
Yeah,
match.
yeah.
So
I love that.
just nice to see. Just nice to see.
For me, one of the standout games that I remember watching was Tao Tao Chu on Uzuri this Pro Tour, and I have to say it was insane. Like, literally, like watching that game, that was a masterstroke. Like, honestly, every turn, every thought, every play was calculated to the nth degree. And Tao Tao Chu is, I mean, if you guys saw Tao Tao bringing out Arachne for a defensive win at the ProQuest, I believe, the ProQuest
Yeah,
season.
I think so. I think
Yeah,
so.
like that was very interesting, and I think to apply some of that into the Uzuri deck that he brought to Proto was incredible as well. I feel like Uzuri is bubbling up to be one of the maybe outsider decks to play
Yeah,
in
I think
this current
it's
meta, right?
yeah. I mean, Assassin has access to the codexes,
Yeah,
so that's always a plus point for
it
the deck
really is. Yeah,
itself, right?
yeah,
But yeah, just Tao Tao's game in itself. To give a bit of a comment, he really emblematized like the idea of being an assassin. Very well calculated.
yeah.
Everything that he played was so well tuned, and
Yes, I
he
agree.
knew the lines as
He
though
knew. Oh
going in for the
man.
kill.
Again,
Yeah.
like not just regarding his opponents, but Tao Tao played such a smooth and clean game on Uzuri. I really have to agree with Elliot here. Like it's almost like he's embodied the assassin leader.
Yeah, yeah,
Like that
yeah.
was masterclass games.
Masterclass.
Protoa
Oh,
was it's always a joy for us to watch on this side of the world because we're not in the same time zone as the Proto itself, but for us to wake up and to stay up late, reading up the updates. Shout out to LSS for the live blog, amazing work. You guys did crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think usually Proto is also you always know something's looming just before, just after, right? And you're like, I wonder who's going to get hit this time. And earlier we were talking on the podcast that surprisingly no one actually got hit. For CC at least, you want to quickly walk us through the changes in Blitz, which no one cares about, So
So for Blitz season, I mean, we know that winter has come and gone. So
Yeah.
Icelander and Oldhim, sayonara to you guys. It was nice
ya.
knowing you all.
Yeah.
I guess aggro's back on the menu. They unbanned Drone of Brutality.
Let's talk for this for a bit. What does that mean to the game?
Well, okay, a couple of things, right?
Yeah.
Number one, I think it's not a bad unbanning. Yes, it breaks one of the core tenets of the game, which is that every time you use a card, it's a kind of resource that you're expending away.
Yeah.
Right? Drone breaks that core tenet because you can always, you can end up with this stalemate where it's like I'll block with two drones, and then you block with two drones, and we just keep going on the cycle over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think with the exit of Oldhim, one of the stalliest decks that we've seen in Flesh and Blood, especially in the Blitz format, is now I don't think LSS is afraid of fatigue games
Yeah.
that much in Blitz. Blitz's power level is obviously quite high. We have the likes of like Rhina, KO inside, Kano as well. So
Kano's
like the
still
three of
floating
them,
around, yeah.
all very explosive decks. And
Yeah.
without us going to time or even decking out, Drone of Brutality, I don't think is as big an issue as it used to be.
Yeah, definitely not. I see a world where the return of or the reintroduction of Prism in Blitz also has warranted the drone coming back into Blitz. Wondering not just maybe not just functioning as a popper, right? But what is it that it's allowing players to be able to do consistently? Then that means they have drone more than 2 times. And in Blitz, that's actually a very big thing, right? Because your deck is only so thin and you only have 2 cards of each. So drone could be a way to... I don't want to say aggro things up because it's a 2-cost 6.
It's 2-cost 6.
And there's no go again on that one. So it's definitely more of a thought, thinking down, okay, maybe I need to throw this out to pop something. Maybe I need to throw this out to attack. It's going to be interesting how it's coming back into the game. Honestly, I can't comment much also because I don't really care for Blitz, so. But yeah, so that's pretty much for Blitz. I don't think there was.
Well, there were 2 more outstanding ones which I think kind of matter. There's Crown of Seeds moving from suspended to legal. So Briar can somehow wear this new headpiece again.
For what? I'm not sure. Right?
We're not sure. But the more important one is actually Hypothermia coming back into the set. So for Blitz, Hypo was a problem because you could play at instant speed as Icelander. But when you think about the really aggressive decks like Lexi that could possibly show up in Blitz as well, they have explosive turns. Hypothermia played by any new ice hero in the future, even as an action, could shut down their game plan.
It's still a very effective card, regardless of who's using it. I agree with that one.
I imagine that if Hypothermia was unbanned in like CC, for example, today, Oldhim would have a much easier time against this new Lexi list that's coming out.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's like a reset, right?
Dude.
Yeah, it's an action, but it's still a good action to play down to stop the whole white Voltaire turn. It's an instant shutdown.
Yeah, and that's
so interesting.
That's pretty much it for Blitz. We're not going to comment too much on UPF because, again, like Blitz, it's not really.
I
It's
haven't
not
touched
really
a game of that.
I've never played UPF. I would like to at some point, but we'll leave that for another day. All right, Elliot, what are we looking at? So now with no decks being touched, what does RTN possibly look like for the CC's games?
Well, I think first and foremost, Lexi is still, in my opinion, like the top dog, right? It's the deck to beat in this format. Any deck that goes over the top, you have to think about what's your game plan into Lexi.
Yeah.
Oldhim's untouched as well, but I feel like to really pilot Oldhim in the way Michael Fang is doing is not
Ooh,
necessarily
that's not
the
easy.
easiest. Yeah,
Definitely
it's not
not.
easy.
Yeah.
We should expect Dromais to be around, Oldhim's to be around, Lexi's to be around. Azalea, I think, is one of those which try to have a good showing at Pro Tour Baltimore as well.
Yeah.
But not really doing the same conversions that it used to be. So that's possibly off the list for me and my play group lah, at the very
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting bit is let's talk a bit about what else could enter this format, right? And I'd love to hear your thoughts about this as well. I think some of the brewings that we've had are things like Katsu being back on the table.
I
So
like that.
you need to go in order to win this current format, you need to output as much damage as possible, right? It's like I said, a lot of times the aggro race is still very much alive, and the way to beat Oldhim is that you have to go wider than
Yeah.
anyone possibly can do to you. With the new bonds lines that have come in, with Dishonor and whatnot, I actually think Katsu stands a chance. If you guys are thinking of picking it up, there is a very good matchup to Dromai, number one.
Oh,
right? If you're
super.
Katsu, you just farm dragons all day.
Yeah.
That's always sick. You get to see a lot of cards as well. You're trying to make like just that surging combo line into Descendant and possibly into like bonds to find more stuff.
Yeah.
I've even seen people who can like stretch the bonds to find another Descendant and then into another bonds
Ooh,
again.
that's mad. That's mad. Yeah.
You go so wide that the Dishonor definitely hits at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That to me is actually crazy.
Which game was the one that ended it with Dishonor?
Oh yeah, the one where he killed with Dishonor.
Dude,
and
even if like you end it and Dishonor doesn't actually take effect, right? But we were talking about it over like dinner. Style points, man.
Style points,
that's S rank for sure.
Yeah, I honestly feel Katsu has just so much potential in this current format because he is able to deal with most of the boogeymen in the current format.
Yeah.
But mains to be tested. I think if you guys are interested, there are a couple of lists going on. Team Poland brought quite a number of Katsu decks up to Pro Tour as well.
That's right.
Surprisingly, I think they brought in a control list. So the old school like Flick Flags and whatnot.
Yeah, Flick Flag is still such a amazing card for Katsu. 5 doesn't use it as much because again, not so many cards are combo based, right? But with Katsu, there's the flexibility there of making stuff not just like opening up attacks and going wide, right? But if you really wanted to, bringing you back to like the early days of the WTR, if you wanted to turtle Katsu, you could.
You could turtle Katsu, that's the amazing part about it. There is a lot of flexibility, and we haven't seen Katsu's day in the light for a while.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah, during like the whole Oldhim saga, Winter's Wail, with pulses going around. I think Katsu kind of like left the scene for a bit.
Yeah,
but I think there's a chance they could come back in this current season.
Yeah.
Another one that I think is, and I might be memeing a bit here, but I think that Riptide might have a chance.
Hey yo, I really hope somewhere someone breaks out with the Riptide deck. It's not the easiest deck into anyone, really.
It really isn't. But with the amount, if I think about what's going to be in the current meta, and I'm really assuming that Katsu comes back in some way, shape, or form. Honestly, the traps and the fact that Riptide is very happy to play all 9 codexes could actually be a huge deal. Could be a huge deal in this current format.
I agree with you.
The traps, they trigger pretty easily against Lexi because there are pumps, Voltaire +1, etc. You're able to trigger most of the new base traps quite easily. And more importantly, I'm kind of like jumping the gun here, but we'll talk a bit about Uzuri later. The defense reaction package that Riptide can just play vanilla is so good into Uzuri,
It's
actually.
quite redonkulous, yeah.
It's quite redonkulous.
Like it shuts down without even trying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I was just this is a bit of a tangent, but I was talking to a friend recently about the strength of Riptide, and we came to this conclusion that Bolton cannot win Riptide by a mile.
Oh.
Everything that Bolton does triggers a
Oh
trap.
god, you're right.
Plus ones, go agains,
Yeah.
attack reactions. Everything that Bolton's kit does triggers a
Oh
trap.
dude, freaking tar pit as well on Lumina. That is
Yeah.
painful, bro.
The moment Bolton activates his ability, it's like
Yeah.
blood rot trap for you, sir. And then he's like, yes, not a great
Poor
time.
guy can't catch a break, man.
Can't catch a break. Can't catch a
Can't
break.
catch a break. I would like to see a Riptide deck that doesn't just do well with the sort of the aggressive ones. I want to see how Riptide plays into the controls. That would be interesting to see because I feel like that's something that I've been waiting. A lot of people are Riptide fans. We're all closet Riptide fans, but we don't dare to bring that deck out because we know it's
Yeah.
not going to perform well.
Yeah.
I hope we get proven wrong.
Well, I think one of the reasons why Riptide wasn't doing super well prior to this Pro Tour season was really because Icelander was kind of still around pre-outsiders,
Yes.
right?
Yep,
And
yep.
people were still adjusting to that. And also another point against Riptide would be going against dragons. If Dromai is part of this meta,
Oh, you're
um,
gone, man.
yeah, it's very hard. Like the traps don't trigger on
Yeah.
ally attacks, etc.
Yeah.
So
Especially
it's gonna
when
be
you're playing a slower deck against a deck that wants to build board. Not a great gameplay. Yeah.
not a great game plan. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So some points there, I think it's a possibility, and I would love to see who can brew a deck that's just like so Riptide centric on traps, able to take
so
away
excited.
games. The third deck that I'm thinking of is actually Briar. Now
Yes.
that Azalea is kind of being unfavored, or people are not looking towards her as the top dog once again after the Chicago Brawl,
Mm-hmm.
is our good old friend Briar, who's not that many points away from
Yeah.
LLing actually.
She's literally waiting to show herself out the door.
I think
Honestly,
she's at like
She's
964 or
exactly.
984.
She just needs like one win.
Yeah, it's like so I think every RTN will give 2 points per win. So
Yeah,
across the world, in Singapore, there are like 9 RTNs already.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's not it's not crazy
Yeah.
if you wanted to band together and say let's push Rosetta
Yeah.
out of the
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
the
I agree.
format.
Then you really get all the tails people out as well. I think
yeah.
Briar's one of those decks that does well into any new set that comes out because she's reliable. She has a very consistent sort of a game plan into every one that comes out. You still, it's the aggression game plan, but you also have the option for being a little bit more mid range, something that Room Blades are okay in doing. And what I like seeing Briar adapt to this sort of like meta right now with Azalea moving out is that she does have as much explosive power as Lexi if you're going for a really, really big turns. If you tune your deck to favor, the channel mount heroic, you could possibly have really big turns back to back. But the only problem here is, similar to the whole Room Blade thing, is consistency, right?
Yeah, it's a consistency issue. Well, with Droma in the format, suddenly Briar looks really, really good. Having a channel
Exactly.
mount means everything's a popper.
Yeah.
You have the same old game plan that you would have into old him, and now you just get to race Lexi down. That's always like part of the back and forth. What Briar has going for her, as usual, is the fridge of armor in her backdrop, right? That's always
Delicious.
a very strong thing.
Yeah.
One of Lexi's weaknesses clearly is that she has no blocking equipment at all. It's just a full aggro package.
Yeah.
But yeah, with someone like Briar, your matchups to old him are still very decent. They're still 50-50 if you ask me. You just need to draw out the right cards. So, skill issue most of the time.
Yeah.
And you have a pretty okay game into Lexi. You have a pretty okay game into most decks that you're trying to like
Yes.
just beat down.
Yeah.
And the only thing that was stopping you prior to this was both Icelander, which not existed in this format,
Yeah.
and Azalea with Red in the Ledger, which
Yeah.
also dropping
Top
out of
stacks.
favor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Agreed. I think one thing to also add to that one is, aside from Briar, what I like to look at these sort of big events are the other events that happen, not just at the main event. So if you look at Battle Harden, right? Dash took first place.
Oh, you mean was that the calling? Was that the calling?
Yeah,
Oh.
I think it was just
At the Pro Tour calling, right? I believe.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
I think the Pro Tour calling was a dash win. I'm
Yeah.
not sure what the Battle Hardened one was. This is me not doing my
Was it?
research.
Let me just double check this one out again. It was a Pro Tour Baltimore calling. Yes, calling dash.
Calling was a dash
Second
win.
was Lexi, and the third one, which is actually the deck I was gonna say might re-enter. Zach Bunn's Viserai.
Oh
This
yeah,
is
dude.
the Royal Viz list.
Yes, yes, yes,
And
yes.
the reason why I think this might re-emerge is again, as I was saying, if you're a Runeblade player, especially if you're a Vizrai player, you're all right playing the mid-range game, right? That's something that he excels at. Vizrai is very good at. And looking at his list, having your 9 blades in, you're still building rune chant. You are content in trading cards. You're content in setting up a little bit more damage, stacking that up, and then releasing it upon them when they're not able to block it. And I think that's something that we forgot Viserai excels at.
Oh yeah. He's also
Yeah.
great at farming dragons, dude. Have you ever had
Oh, mate,
Morvian into Spellblade Assault on a
dude,
dragon? Yeah, dude, disgusting.
dude, it's ridiculous how much he can actually do. So I won't be surprised to see Viz make an appearance at some of the Road to Nationals and even the Calling Singapore, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Calling Singapore is going to be very exciting. I think a lot of people are trying to figure out the meta right now. There's
yeah,
so much
for
going
sure.
on. Lexi Public Enemy number one.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're thinking about what to prepare for this season, I think the question you must ask yourself is, can I beat Lexi
Yeah, that
consistently?
is the question. I think with Oldim and Andromai just being right on the tails of Lexi, yes, you want to be prepared to deal with your controls, your board state decks, but the sort of like volume of how much aggression that Lexi can put out right now is almost scary that Briar sometimes is not able to reach that level of consistency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The explosive turns whack on
Yeah.
Lexi.
Another aggressive deck that I feel could make an appearance, and this one is every pipe dream. Is my number one pipe dream, right? For anyone who's a wizard, Kano, right? With
Oh,
Icelander phasing out of the meta, there is little respect for Arcane, and so you might not be packing in the most AB into your games or your deck list. And I feel if there was a pocket, if there was a small window for Kano to shine, it would be now.
mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
has to be.
A lot of the Lexis are packing they have their AB1 on the
Yeah.
gloves as per usual, but then they might bring in the shock charmers.
Yeah.
I think they have a one slot shock charmers just to try to nullify that one Aether Wildfire.
Yeah, but that's not gonna work, bruh. So
Yeah, yeah, it's not always effective. I've
yeah,
been on the facing side of that once in a while.
it's
Yeah.
gonna be interesting because I feel like even with Dromai, you have the debate saying that she, as much as she's got AB for days, she does not have the resource to keep up with that one. And then simply into Oldhim, if they're playing the long game and they bring 4.5 AB, you've got the freaking moon to do some work for you, man.
Mm-hmm.
So
No, for sure.
if you guys are Kano stands, like I would say, brush the dust off the deck. Try a few games that you might be surprised. There hasn't been any massive generic cards coming in for Kano from outsiders at all. So technically, the deck is untouched since Dynasty.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. A lot of the tools from Dynasty still work really well against.
Yeah.
So into the Lexi matchup, for example, I was telling you about, because they're only having that shock charmers on the side,
Mhm.
you can easily get the search effects from the Dynasty cards, like your
Ooh.
your what's that called?
Certain
Swell
Aether, right?
tidings, swell
Oh,
tidings.
Swell Tidings as well. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you can easily hit that 6 because they're no way gonna break the shock charmers for
Yeah.
that particular turn.
Yeah.
All great things in a world where sometimes inertias hit you. The
Ooh.
ponder token actually matters, so you can
It
stack
does,
it in
yeah.
a way. Let the inertia resolve, then the ponder resolve. At least don't lose that card advantage more. So Kano is on my radar to be like something to try out.
Yeah.
I'm not the best Kano player, admittedly, but it is a really, really fun and explosive deck.
Yeah.
In a aggro meta where you're just racing down to the finish.
Agreed. And I think one last deck I want to maybe talk about, aside from the ones that have already won the Battle Hardened, is actually Bravo. I think Bravo is actually in a good place to deal with sort of like the current top decks, right? And I think one thing that's great about Bravo is that he also doesn't mind trading, and he's pretty efficient with it, especially when Anatol's out and about. It doesn't feel too bad to be pitching to swinging after you've blocked out 6 damage. and you can just Arsenal wait for the next turn.
Yeah.
It's pretty efficient still, yeah.
I would say that Bravo's strengths in this meta is that he has the most number of poppers. So when you're going to the Dromai matchup, you're not too afraid. And unlike old him, he actually gets to push damage when he wants to with like the
Yeah.
dominates and whatnot, right?
Agreed, yeah.
So when you do need to push into Lexi for like one of those crippling turns, you can rest assured that they normally will hit if you're doming it.
Yeah.
Just because Lexi has no armor.
Uh-huh.
Lexi is naked most of the time in that sense.
Yeah.
So
It's definitely on hit, yeah.
yeah, so all you have to worry about is the Lexi lists that are running Art of War, because the Art of War will usually allow them to just block from Arsenal when they couldn't otherwise.
Yeah.
That's like a big strength that Lexi can kind of like tech into the Bravo matchup.
I like that one.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
It's a fun one worth thinking about. But just to kind of round it back to your first question about this, is the meta open?
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, I was thinking not so much, before we started this cast, but in talking it through, I think it's still up for interpretation. Meaning we could, people are going to be brewing stuff. No one's going to be sitting on their butts and going like, okay, we're just going to play Lexi till Kingdom Come. I think there's so many ways that we could try to quell. When there is a public enemy, right, people will just find the solution.
Yeah,
to
they
silver
will
bullet
find
armor.
the solution, dude. I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a lot of things for us to kind of experiment with. As the RTN season goes by, I'm sure we'll have a lot more to say about how it evolves,
Yeah.
especially because this is it's a weird one, right? The RTN season is going to cap off somewhere near Dusk Till Dawn, and then the new competitive season comes in, right? Like we'll have nationals I think in Singapore and Malaysia, it's like in September for you guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
For us, yeah.
Yeah, so Dusk Till Dawn releases in mid-July. So it'll be a question of, do we need to adapt fast? Is it going to
for
be
sure, yeah.
legal for nationals?
Yeah.
All these questions will be looming at the back of our heads because if that's the case, one of the ways to deal with old him, Taylor's all this time, is that Prism will be back.
Yeah. And that would be a completely different rework of the meta currently as well.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited for what that looks like,
I'm very excited. We've seen like one new angel, and I'm sure as like more cards are spoiled along the way, you and I will have very fruitful discussions over this podcast.
Super duper, man! I hope you guys are not feeling too worried about whether your hero makes sense. I feel like maybe this is the correct season for you to just go out and try anything that you've been enjoying. Because at the end of the day, you want to enjoy the game. You don't want to be playing something you don't want to play. So just get out of your room and go play some games, guys. That's probably the best advice we have for you guys.
Yeah, I think it was a very good thing that we kind of ran through all the different deck archetypes, right?
Yeah.
Like some of the more popular ones, some that are certainly a little bit more viable. So you guys have an idea of what you can pick up along the way, especially for new players. This competitive season might not be the one that you want to just like dive tail yourself into, but it might, be your first step, for example. Your entry point into the scene, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Hope this was really helpful for you guys to kind of like have some ideas of like the strengths and weaknesses of each deck, each hero.
Yeah.
And from there, yes, let us know your success stories along the way.
Let us know. We want to hear some of your favorite decks, some of your favorite cards. Drop in the comment section below so we can talk about it in the next podcast. So for all the new players, I think it's something that I would really encourage you guys to try and go and do. Join a RTN, join the calling that's happening if you're in Asia. Just to experience the sort of like the level of competition, because I feel like it does teach you a lot, and I would very much encourage you to go and get some of that 6 times experience games.
Oh yeah,
it's always
this kind of this game in particular. I think one of the joys of it is you can actually pinpoint like which parts of the game you could have done better in. Right, 100%. A lot of times I find myself playing Flesh and Blood and realizing at the end of a match, like, I won, but there was something I could do better in the mid game.
Oh, I love that.
My losses are also exactly the same, which is always nice. So yeah, Minghan, come back into the competitive game and
Please,
join us. Yeah, we miss Minghan. He hasn't sat in Eventverse for quite a while, actually.
Quite a long time, yes. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let us know if it helped you as well in your decision-making process of what to pick up for the upcoming competitive season. But for everything else, let us know if you are just having a great time in life. Yeah. Cool.
We'd love to know.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Elliot.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
See ya. Bye.